based in the East End of London. I'm coming at it from a slightly different perspective, from not yet having had big funding, not yet actually even put in an application for any large funding. So I'm sort of wanting to talk more about some of the things we've achieved on a shoestring, really. So who are we? We're a producing theatre in the East End of London. It's a beautiful Victorian auditorium with about 440 seats. We sort of became who we are now in 1957. A famous figure within the theatre world, Joan Littlewood, set about putting the voice of the working class East End on the stage, which was quite a radical position at the time, and tried to start to break down barriers about theatre and actually put theatre on that people could have some engagement with in the East End of London. And central to that was this idea that she had about the continuous loop, which is the idea that we draw from our audience and put that on stage, and they respond to that, and there's this kind of ongoing circle between audiences and the artistic product in marketing terms. For us, that sort of legacy, I think, is still kind of, an ethos is still at the heart of our organisation, although it's moved on into a hugely more contemporary context. To that end, you may or may not have heard about a project we did over a period of several years, which ended in the summer last year, called Open Stage. Open Stage was a project in which we worked to talk to thousands of people in the East End of London using both digital and sort of more traditional, surveys and so forth. And we gave over programming power of our stage for 6 months at the start of last year. Alongside that, we kind of opened up our doors to allow people to engage and get involved in our organisation on their terms, as opposed to saying, here's a community engagement programme, you can come here and hand out flyers, or it was more involving. But that was a project, and a lot of what we're talking about now, and we're kind of trying to bring our digital thinking into this, is very much about what do we learn from that project, and what does that mean for us in the future and pushing new boundaries. And a lot of it is about becoming more transparent as an organisation, and meaningful participation with audiences. The risk of slap a video up, some opportunity to put your video up on your website, but how do you then make that response or comment from that person seem valid? How do we kind of continue this idea, which kind of links back right to Joan Littlewood's day, about democratising the voices around theatre, and opening up that, and how do we show we're listening? We've got all these kind of questions we're kind of playing with, and we're still in quite a sort of formative stage about how we're going to play this out digitally. The other bit of context, I suppose, to what I've got to say today is about, the area in which this theatre sits. It's in Newham in East London. It's still got an extremely, extremely low arts engagement, and it's one of the poorest boroughs in London. A huge proportion of our, it's a very migratory population, and it's a very young population. Something like 60% in the census data is not always that up to date, but it was between 18 and 25, massive population. So it's quite, and then alongside that, we've just had obviously the Olympics right next to us on our doorstep. And it hasn't really ended, the regeneration of East London hasn't ended then. We've had 12,000 new residents moving into the Olympic Park site and other areas of development in Stratford in the next sort of 8 to 10 months. There's new university buildings, new student residences. So we have all this kind of other complexity around, in these difficult economic times, and in the spirit of opening what we do to the widest possible number of people, we want to embrace and try and engage all those people coming into the area. But we also philanthropically want to continue our loyalty to those people who have always kind of supported us. I think the other thing is, Theatre Royal Stratford East is an Olivier award-winning producing theatre that has a huge catalogue of well-known fabulous productions. I find it, I mean, I'm head of marketing, so I'm coming from a slightly marketing perspective, but I find it quite challenging when I kind of work on quite a small budget, frankly, to say, well, I know that, you know, a huge proportion of our audience on the doorstep, so potentially I should be channeling energies to and what spend I've got in that area, but at the same time we know that there's a huge amount of profile and there are audiences that come from much, much further afield, and how do you balance that? And I think PR and digital kind of does have that kind of wider sphere, so I think there's that whole element as well. So, digital revolution, I mean, we all know, everyone in this room knows we're in the midst of it, or it's already happened, frankly. But I personally coming to the increasing conclusion that it is rather trendy at the moment. I mean, there are so many digital events you could kind of shake a stick at. And I do think that, you know, we need to talk about, in the arts, how we make that meaningful and how we have a two-way dialogue. And that we should start with audiences and their needs. So, you know, the fact that digital is now been recognised by the arts as something we should be doing, and I totally concur, but, you know, it to suddenly start blasting at things that people who are appropriate. And I think, you know, I think it's very easy to start with the solution, to come at it and say, oh, well, we need to do something, you know, we're moving forward digitally, or we've got some funding, or and say, well, let's build an app, we'll commission an app. And I think, actually, unless you've got a fabulous digital department that you have, where you've got kind of fairly good digital knowledge within an organisation, a lot of us haven't got that, so we're at risk of kind of going off and commissioning something rather than kind of putting out the proposition of what it is that we want to achieve and finding what the digital creativity could be to meet that result. And the other thing I think is becoming increasingly problematic is this whole conversation about digital. It's as if there's a physical and a virtual world, and actually, you know, the generations now, the digital element, their iPad, their phones, everything is just an extension of who they are and their life. They don't kind of think, I heard someone say recently, you don't see people walking around with a D for digital on their forehead saying, I'm a digital person. So to start thinking about what you're doing as an organisation is, this is what we're doing for digital, and this is what we're doing for the art and for the market. You know, it's got to start to become more deeply embedded. And I'm not saying that I've got the answers to all this, but this is the kind of stuff that we're thinking and talking about. So in terms of our digital picture, we're trying to use digital we're trying to build a community. We're not expecting this to translate into sales. And we're trying to open a dialogue and inviting response. We're trying to invite people into our space, and we are now referring, for example, to our website as our third space. We're trying to sort of work with colleagues to start to see it as another platform, not just kind of where we sell our tickets. And as I mentioned, trying to really integrate digital into our wider planning, so it's not kind of, you know, here's a bit of digital and here's a bit of theatre. So what we've been up to, well, we haven't got a digital department, but what we have done is various sort of things with staff, you know, people change and move on, and so I've had a really special opportunity in a way that I started there actually today, a year ago today, that I could recruit a team, so I kind of really thought about the balance of energies within the marketing and what I feel is communications and an outward-facing kind of department in that way. And, it's difficult, but we have committed one post completely to doing digital work and having a bit more expertise. And what I specifically did in shaping that post is, I mean, you know, you interview so many people that go, yeah, I can use a bit of Facebook and Twitter, you know, but actually I really I knew I didn't have much budget, and so I've been quite lucky that I managed to find someone who had both marketing experience but also had a film production degree. Now that may be a rare combination, but the notion that someone could actually physically create content and do stuff for us, because if you have to go off and commission a film every time you want to produce a bit of video, and you know, you're getting a freelancer in, the process and the speed at which you can create content is just too slow. We set about buying kit, And I was really surprised at how viable that was. Apart from the fact that prices have come down, we bought a Mac, we bought a camera, you know, we bought various software. Capital expenditure, you know, if anyone's sitting in the department thinking, God, it's going to cost us £5,000, capital expenditure is offset against 3 years, and the chances are there is a capital expenditure budget, which is in the marketing department. So we bought a basic amount of kit. I mean, we probably spent £3.5K, but it's kind of got us going. We're the first theatre in London to launch Facebook ticketing, which got a fair amount of press coverage. It's not cracking, it's not, I mean, it's moved on already, but it was great to experiment with that whole notion of providing your audience the way to buy a ticket without leaving the platform in which they're in. We have a tweet zone in our auditorium, which is nothing that special, to be honest, in terms of the physical kit is having a free Wi-Fi in the auditorium. What's special about it is promoting from the point of selling a ticket that actually you can tweet in certain seats and giving people that free Wi-Fi and encouraging people to be able to tweet within a performance. So again, just trying to allow people greater freedoms. I mean, that's quite, you know, quite a hard thing to kind of get an organisation on board with, but we're trying it. We've got a huge commitment to spending, you know, time on our social media. We plan our social media, it's part of our wider discussion, and we're trying to involve more people in the organisation. A lot of those people writing blogs for us. Every time we put a new show on, we get all the cast writing blogs. Our artistic director, Kerry, will occasionally do a bit of, send a tweet out and he'll personalise it with his initials. Yeah, bloggers. This is a tricky one. In the spirit of democratising the voice around theatre, we have also been trying to think about, you know, the people that are the critics who are writing about theatre and saying what's good and what's not, are not the same profile in the slightest to the audiences that come through our door. So we've been kind of shaking things up and saying, actually, you know, bloggers and various other types of online media, we're going to let them see the show first, get their previews out before the big boys do. We're trying to experiment with things, or bring them on the side. We've built a new website, and you know, I've worked in organisations where it's like, we've been talking about it for 5 years and it's never happened. I turned up in this job last year, and they said, I started on this 13th of February, and the decision was I had to commission it, build it, test it, and get it live in 10 weeks. And it had to be innovative and engaging and, you know, radical and all these things. So yeah, and we did it, and it was about £14,000 plus VAT, and I think it's good. I mean, we've had really good feedback on it. It's not perfect, but I don't believe that you can kind of do anything in the digital world and say it's done. It's got to be an evolving thing and be responding to the user experience. And live streaming. So I forgot what I was going to talk about next. In terms of the website, I was just going to say that personally I think, you know, that is the most critical piece of digital that you've got. We built it over 10 years, and 10 weeks, and it's harnessing kind of our principles of, so we allow people to contribute and respond on our website without any moderation at all. They can upload their own videos in response to things on our website. We're dedicated on our website to not just broadcasting our own voice, so we're actually pulling in content from other East London organisations, from other theatre friends, all kinds of different things, trying to make ourselves a kind of hub and make it. We're developing a lot of rich content. I think we created, for a small organisation who's not commissioned anything, we created 6 different videos around our pantomime. I was looking at the stats. The top one had about 1,600 views, which I think was quite good. And again, it links in with everything. It all meshes in. You know, you can be then social mediaing about, you know, with images, but also with video and so forth. And what's really interesting is we found that there's a higher proportion of people finding our videos on our YouTube site than clicking on them on our website. And it may well be that that's telling us that people who are on our website have already decided that they'd like to come and see that show, and they know us, and so they're just coming and buying. And actually, what would be very positive is to feel that actually, with all the kind of digital advertising, all the other things we're doing, that potentially we're finding new people are finding our organisation through the content that's on YouTube. So we have a kind of conversation response widgets, not just the social media ones. We were using another tool where people can key directly into the website, comments about our work, a simple user-driven journey, as well as sales. Alistair Smith recently wrote for the TMA's Prompt magazine that the most exciting digital development to break into theatre was live streaming. But I think for many of us it is imbued with fear. And the first thing you think of is NT Live and think, my God, this is, we're a team of 3 and we're doing press marketing and everything else. And I just kind of wanted to sort of suggest that, it is worth kind of having a go. You don't need a particularly posh camera to do some live streaming. Of course, if you want to recreate a performance, you need a really great camera, but you can even use a webcam. You need a laptop. You need to kind of, when you do live stream, you usually kind of put some sort of holding card up before and afterwards that kind of, and we use it as an advert. I'll perhaps show you in a moment at the end, for the forthcoming live stream. We've actually got one tomorrow. And we started for free originally, and I know you mentioned that there are lots of dynamics, and we were on Ustream, and the package, the entry package, which is free, the worst thing is you're putting up with third-party random advertising coming with alongside your stuff. But it's free, and it's a good way to experiment. We then have started using another provider to give you a flavour, and it's stream video provider. And the reason I picked it, apart from the fact that it does HD and you can get off the advert package, is some of them seem to start with kind of, you can do it cheaply, but then if you want to kind of future-proof it and you start doing a lot more stuff, you suddenly realise that the next price bracket is huge. So my sort of feeling was actually to go for one that had good incremental steps. You can run the stream to your YouTube or to your website, and you just kind of get a little code that you put in, and certainly Stream Video Provider has good online video tutorial to get you going, so I'd really encourage people not to sort of feel too afraid. But really critical to it, you need to promote your stream event, I think we can improve, and I'll come on to that. So far we've focused on live streaming post-show discussions. What we've been doing is the one on Thursday, we've got Mark Shenton, we've got a couple of the original Glasgow girls. We're doing a show at the moment called Glasgow Girls, and 2 of the original are coming, and someone from Scottish Refugee Council, and it's being hosted by the show's director. We've done ones previously for Dangerous Lady, a stage play based on a book by Martina Cole. We had Martina Cole on stage, we were promoting it through her fan base. And we did one for the previous show, so we've done a few since I've been there. And alongside that, we're trying to run a debate on Twitter, which is kind of tricky, but what's quite nice is you're kind of, people can watch, but they can also be tweeting in questions, and then you can sort of pose a question to the panel if you're sitting there as the tweet person for the evening. So it's almost like an auction, a question from the floor, and then that they can obviously watch that back on Stream Provider, but we kind of tweet out responses, especially 40 characters. And so we're really just trying to kind of get a dialogue going and get people interested. And we're promoting it ahead on our website and social media. And we're doing 3 for our current show, and the one on Thursday is at 10 o'clock on our website. So, overcoming challenges. I just think that potentially it can be quite difficult in organisations to get started with this, and it's worth kind of just thinking about what some of the challenges might be, and broadly what I would suggest. It's live and you've announced it's happening. That's quite an interesting one, because the very first time we did one, we did it, but we didn't really promote it much because we weren't sure if it was going to work. And all I can say is you can set it up behind the scenes before. I mean, it can be streaming and hidden up for kind of 2 days before if you want. So you can sit ahead, you can test it, and frankly, just brave. The lead times and reality of programming and plans, I find that when you're planning a live stream, it's quite helpful, you know, to get to know who the speakers are, know the dates. I mean, the thing is, you need someone to stay behind and stand behind the camera for you. You need time to promote it. So it's trying to imbue these things into the culture of your organisation. Broadcast and contracts for actors. I haven't got my head around this yet, and obviously other people have. But the thing to think about if you were starting this from scratch is if it's a performance, you know, if it's a theatre performance, certainly equity contracts have rules about it. It's often considered to be broadcast. There may be clever ways around it, but I think clearly as we move forward, you know, it's not going to be acceptable anymore. These barriers are going to start to reduce. The culture of doing these things is going to become easier. And we've wanted to get cameras more into rehearsals, and it's quite challenging with kind of actors saying, well, we don't want it in the public sphere because we're still working it out and we don't want them to see us kind of goof up. And so we're starting to try and kind of now have a new kind of covering section with our contract, which doesn't oblige people to do it, but talks about this is the spirit of our organisation, these are the things we hope you'd like to do with you, and if you feel uncomfortable about this, we'd like to know at the point you're sending back the contract. But also those words and the information in that is now starting to be used by our artistic team. So as the idea is that as they're casting and as they're talking to potential people, that we want to involve people in our organisation that are of a similar spirit and interest as ourselves. People worrying you might impact ticket sales. Personally, I think it's crazy. It's not the same experience, and I think all the evidence suggests that actually people get a taste of it online and then they come to your venue. And I think you should push back against it. Promoting your live and getting views. Lead times help, but you know, you want to put it out through your other digital channels, as well as getting press and using third-party emails and even print, you know, all those things. What we want, I think press is quite critical, and I was looking at what the Young Vic did recently with their Feast post-show discussion, and you know, getting Wingard on stage, getting that into the Guardian, just kind of really helped vamp up the number of people that were kind of connecting with it. So what next? One of the very obvious issues, holding my hands up, I think we have, is that we're live streaming onto our homepage. But at the moment, partly because there's complexities with the number of calls to Twitter and people have maximised their screen, but I still think there's an issue that if you're going to have a dialogue going about what people are watching remotely, at the moment potentially they're using 2 bits of kit, so I don't think that's great. I'm really keen to do a kind of live backstage event. I know the Royal Opera House have done quite aspirational things, linking up with the Guardian for a whole day, but I'm thinking, well, I'm sure we could manage to put together a schedule which is kind of a 3-hour schedule which involves an interview with the production's director, and nip into the rehearsals, look around at the set and stuff, you know, that we could package something up and promote it and just try to move what we're doing on. And ultimately, of course, we'd like to try and start live streams and shows. And stream outside of our website, and we, like everybody, you know, the opportunity to go to cinema, the community centres, obviously we've heard about streaming into hospitals, in the whole spirit of widening access and participation. I suppose my overall message is, you know, if you haven't done any live streaming yet, I think, you know, in a really entry level you can start to have a go and see, and I think that's worth doing. It's good to sort of start small scale and get some experiences, and that can feed your thoughts about how you might want to use it going forward and start to change the culture of the organisations you're in to kind of embrace these things. So please don't forget to check out our live stream tomorrow night. It's at www.stratford.com. Thanks very much. I wasn't going to play videos, but I was just going to but I was just going to show that if you go onto the homepage of our website at the moment, it's promoting the live stream, but I can find where I was. So, let's command. Probably not going to be working on this browser, is it? That's going to be absolutely typical. I'll try and refresh it, but okay. So, questions? No questions? I'm let off lightly.
Yes, what's been the response to your live streaming? Do you know how many people have been?
Not huge, which is why I'm quite focused on thinking about trying to improve the promotion and the lead times for it. Because to be honest, we've been kind of getting detailed, because this post-show discussion is getting information very late. We think kind of around 100, 120 people logging on at a particular time to kind of watch something. But again, I think also, I'm also interested in the business that we talked about earlier about live streaming and whether making people feel the imperative to do it at a particular time. Because again, we are recording at the same time as live streaming. And actually what I didn't do before I came was check the stats and how many people might have watched that afterwards. But I know the hits on saved video content are quite good in our channels.
What's been the response, you talked about the tweet zones, what's been the response among kind of the traditional audience members who maybe aren't sitting in the tweet zones? Has there been any sort of conflict between your audience members who are sort of online on their devices during the shows and other audience members?
I can't say it's totally hitch-free, but we are trying to be quite intelligent about how we approach it. So we have quite segmented areas with big tweet symbols on the end of the rows, and it's about embracing other departments. So if the marketing or digital type element of the organisation is going, let's do this, then you need your box office to be selling it accordingly, and you need to be flagging with the ticketing system that those are tweet zone seats and what that means. So it's not glitch free, and I don't think it's having a huge uptake, but what I think in this overall picture is this is really, most of these things have really started to kind of get going since I've been there, and that isn't that long. So I sort of feel like I'm quite in the spirit playfully of kind of, because we're doing it on a low budget basis, trying things and trying to shift and break down sort of traditional barriers. I would say that we have a reputation for, because a lot of people who come to our theatre don't go to any other arts organisation or don't go and see theatre anywhere else. They don't really, a lot of them don't know traditional theatre etiquette. Now that causes problems when they buy the, quite bad seats and then expect them to be really good because they just don't understand the correlation between spend and seat. But at the same time, it does mean they're renowned for being quite reactive and quite noisy audience at times. And actually, we embrace that. So we probably have got quite a good environment to start to introduce these other elements.
How are you finding the creatives with tweeting and things like that? Are you finding there's huge obstacles in your way, stopping you from doing it all?
Learning curves, I think we're doing really well in our own artistic department being on board, and that's a lot about really me at senior management level, keeping this agenda on the table at management meetings, getting the support of the artistic director, and Kerry Markle's renowned for championing digital stuff. I've got an easier ride. The interesting thing is obviously every time you put on a new show, you have a new team of people, and you might have a director who's not intending, you've got a new cast. And so the things I was talking about, getting cameras into rehearsal rooms and all those kinds of things. So I think it's about setting that proposition up early, in terms of a nice cover letter saying, oh, we're looking forward to working with you, enclose your contract, please note, we operate in this spirit, let us know if you feel uncomfortable, for that dialogue to be there right from the casting stage. And also, just relationship building. Like, if the first time they see you, you walk in with a video camera, you get but actually, if, we have a meet and greet for every show, so every show, the entire organisation descends on the green room for coffee and cake and meets all the new cast before they go into rehearsals. Great opportunity to kind of bring that in, make sure you go for a drink in the bar, when you know they're down there. So, you know, a lot of it's about fostering human relationships to do the virtual thing, I'd say. Great,